Welcome to Empowerment Radio. I'm your host, Dr. Friedemann Schaub, and today we will talk about the mind and the body and the connection of both and how we can use them or how we can use that connection to improve our health and well-being and also to heal ourselves. Now, many of you know that I am actually coming from a family of doctors, that I started my path on a very allopathic way as a cardiologist. And I was always feeling in the job as an allopathic doctor that somehow when patients came to me, they were looking up to all of us doctors as, okay, you're going to fix me, you're going to heal me, I need you. And on some level, there wasn't really a sense of confidence or a sense of, well, you can give me whatever you want, but ultimately it's my body who does the healing. And for some reason that bothered me. And I think it bothered me because my parents had such a holistic approach to healing. They came from a small town in the Black Forest, in Germany. They really had that, that role of the family doctor who knows everyone. My dad hand delivered literally about 10% of the town himself, because at that time the nearest hospital was rather far away, and he told very fascinating stories of how he sometimes had to go on skis to the farm in the middle of winter and somehow, deal with a breech birth, a complicated delivery, and how he was sweating bullets. And thank God that person made it, and is still a patient of his 20 years later. So they had that sense that a patient, a human being, needs to be looked at as a whole system, not just as a symptom, not just as a complaint, but really every aspect of their existence, of their life, needed to be taken into consideration. So that included, of course, just how the body that they had was functioning and how they treated it, but also their environment, their jobs, their marriage, their upbringing. So they took time to really learn to know the people that came to them. And they also took time to empower them, to give them the sense of the doctor makes the prescriptions, but the patient does the healing. And I felt that was a very powerful approach, and it also gave the patients a greater motivation to stay healthy, a greater motivation to be involved in their own healing. And when I worked in a huge hospital, University Hospital in Munich, it just completely changed, because there it was much more mechanical approach, higher numbers that we had to deal with, much less time per person. And it was, again, that feeling that a person that came to us just automatically gave their power away. And that is something that then when I worked on shifting away from cardiology and focusing more on the, let's say, emotional heart, that is something that I wanted to help people with. How can we use our own innate healing potential to heal ourselves? How can we stay healthy and well by just working more intrinsically with that what we naturally have? Because we all know our cells have the abilities to repair cancer and repair the DNA that may be broken or affected. Our immune system is extremely powerful, has a wonderful memory, and is very effective in fending off viruses and bacteria. So we are actually designed to stay healthy and not designed to break. So what can we do to get that healing potential going? And part of that was that realization that our thoughts, our emotions, our mind play a huge role in our physical body. And I remember very well that my head of the department at that time, he didn't believe that emotions have anything to do with cardiological issues. And Well, this was about 30 years ago, and science has changed. Research has found that those thoughts, our attitude, how we feel, has a lot to do with what our body is doing. We know that our immune system works better when we are more positive and optimistic. There have been studies that showed that there is a sense of emotional vitality that actually improves our health and well-being. I will talk about that study more after the break. And there are also vice versa studies that have shown that anxiety, stress, depression can lead to severe health issues. I mean, stress is now considered as the greatest health risk in modern societies. So that is all to say that the mind-body connection is an important key when it comes to our health and well-being. And today I have invited a specialist, someone who has been studying the mind-body connection and has been really done some very powerful work and has put together an organization that is also really focusing on helping people to use that approach of the mind-body connection in the context of also other alternative approaches to heal cancer, chronic illnesses, and so on, and get a deeper and more empowering understanding of it. I know Johannes since I think now like 15 years. So we have met like beginning of 2000, and it's such a pleasure and just a joy to see how his work has been more and more unfolding. His latest is a TV, a lifestyle prescription TV that he started not too long ago, and he just had a summit that I think ended this weekend, which was an incredible success. So much more about Johannes and his work and the mind-body connection, but maybe we do after the break. So let's take a break early because I don't want to miss any time with Johannes Fisslinger, founder of Meta Medicine and Lifestyle Prescription TV. So when we come back, we will talk with him and we will talk more about how we can use the power of the mind-body connection to heal ourselves. We will be right back. Well, welcome back to Empowerment Radio, and I'm so delighted to have Johannes Fisslinger on the phone now. The good old-fashioned phone works just well. Johannes, you're calling from Germany, and thank you so much for calling in and being on the show.
Yes, thank you, Friedemann. Really a pleasure being here with you, and it's always great to be on your show, and your work is absolutely amazing. And the break we were talking about, speaking at the Lifestyle Medicine Summit, which just finished a week ago, and people loved your talk and your exercise and really were raving about, your expertise in terms of anxiety and fear. And so thank you for what you do.
Oh, you're so welcome. This was just such also an eye-opener for me because I learned through the different talks and presentations a lot. And this the film that you put together was just in itself already a gem to watch. Now, is there a way for people to watch that film again?
Well, how about we make a special screening just for your audience?
That would be great. How would we do that?
Yeah, we can do that. I just give you the link and access, and you can send it out to your community for a couple of days. They can watch it. And yeah, it's interesting. I did one movie a few years ago about yoga, the Titans of Yoga, and didn't do anything for a while. And when we decided to do the Lifestyle Medicine Summit, I said, well, what can we do to really educate people about this? What is lifestyle medicine? And it's like, we can reverse 80%. 80% of health issues, chronic health issues, can be reversed. Most people can't even grasp that, but that's the science, right? We know that that's true. And I kind of like what we did at the beginning of the movie, where we started with that concept. We said, every industry has been disrupted or radically transformed and changed over the last 10, 20 years, like, shopping Amazon or music, right? And just digitally and all these industries totally have been changed and improved. Just one hasn't. which is healthcare, right? I mean, it seems to be becoming more expensive instead of actually less. Every industry kind of cost goes down, right? No healthcare, it goes up tremendously. And we seem to not be able to get a grasp on that. And there are many reasons, obviously, but I think we as consumers, and healthcare is also driven by us consumers. Instead of just consuming blindly without taking responsibility, we need to say, hey, stop. I'm the boss. I'm paying you. I choose the care that I feel is right for me. And that is huge. But it also requires education because, right now, if I would say about 80-90% of people go to a doctor when they have a health issue, and there's just this one option right now, which mostly is medication, right? We write a prescription, and there's medication and other things too that, which we call the traditional medicine model. And so kind of, a few years ago, I was thinking, how can we shift that? And I thought, why is nobody writing lifestyle prescriptions, right? Green prescriptions or lifestyle prescriptions. And like many times, I was waiting for somebody to do it, and then nobody did. So I said, I guess I have to do it, right? And so I decided to really push and educate people about that option, because just if everybody imagines, right, if we go to a doctor and the doctor would say, and that's going to happen over the next few years, the doctor's going to say, well, okay, you have high blood pressure, right? Which is huge, pandemic really in every country. Well, okay, here we go. We have the symptom treatment, kind of RX medication. I can write you a prescription. You get a medication that kind of helps you to a certain degree, has side effects maybe. And then the other option is you get a lifestyle prescription. We put you on a lifestyle medicine regimen, and they can choose. And right now, we don't have that choice. And so all we were trying to say is there needs to be a choice.
It's really interesting that you say this. There was actually recently a study that was doing exactly that was, basically investigating what happens when people are encouraged with high blood pressure to just, change their lifestyle. Basically, they are told, you can go for walks, you can, meditate, you can, go into maybe understanding what stresses you out and resolve that. So really understanding more how to deal with the root. Now, the caveat of this whole thing was that there was a group of people that was considered very positive and very optimistic, and they were saying, yes, I want to take responsibility and I want to move forward and I want to take care of my health. And then there was the other group that basically was more like, oh my God, I have high blood pressure, or that means I'm going to have a stroke or a heart attack. I need to fix it right away. And that was more the negative, fearful approach. Now, the people that had the positive attitude were much more likely to stay also on track with their prescription of dealing with not just the symptoms, but also the root causes, whereas the others dropped off doing the things that kept them healthy, and they were sticking more to the medicine. So I think this shows it's not just the doctors who need to change their perception on health and healing. It's also us patients who really need to change the responsibility over our health and our body. We cannot just lean back and say, well, I'm just going to take that pill and it's going to take care of it. We also need to really do the work. And I can imagine you have seen this as well.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's like, we get the healthcare system that we kind of want or decide for. And that's what I was saying before. It requires education. And part of, I think, what we're going to talk about today is the mind-body connection, which actually there is not really a mind-body connection, right? It's actually a body-mind social connection, right? We cannot separate ourselves from our social environment. This influences the life that we experience, directly influences us, our emotions, our thoughts, and our physical body. And this ability of our body, as you said, I think at the intro, that the body, it has a powerful ability to heal itself. And using that is something we all can do, in simple ways in our own life or as health professionals.
Absolutely. Now, would you say that, looking at your own life, that your awareness on, this is the first time I actually hear this mind body, how do you call it, societal connection or environmental connection? Social connection.
Yeah, so we call it social. Yeah.
Because I remember at the early days that the mind-body connection, and especially the work of meta medicine, Dr. Hammer, was really a big focus. And I think you have done some wonderful work and research in this regard. Now, the changing to lifestyle, how did that come about? I mean, why did you change from focusing on the mind body to including now the social aspects?
We kind of always did, but it wasn't just as much, the focus wasn't on that. The reason why I really focus on lifestyle prescription is that it's something that I believe can really change healthcare. Because as an example, if you have a doctor, they have 10, 15 minutes per client, per patient. That's all they have, and they just don't get paid to spend more time. So the question is, how can they help their clients, and how can they, instead of prescribing drugs, do a quick analysis, quick diagnosis, and either refer to someone for another diagnosis or give drugs or sometimes physical therapy? I mean, how can we bring in lifestyle medicine, lifestyle modification, right, where we bring in emotions and thoughts and the nutrition, right? Do we have enough exercise? What's our nutrition like, and so on? How can we integrate that? And so to me, that's what lifestyle prescriptions can do. Once doctors just, spend 5-10 minutes, we have these beautiful charts where they know the connection between specific organs or symptoms to specific emotions. Like, for example, stomach mucosa. If people have a stomach mucosa, an ulceration in the stomach, or even digestive system in general, we know very, very often there's a lot of anger that we hold in that part of our body. And so once we know the connection, and the anger is actually about kind of a fighting situation where we fight with someone, if it's in the job or with partners, or the neighbor is invading our garden, right? Or whatever that it might be, whatever ticks us off and stresses us. And once we know the connection between the life situations that we experience and the emotions we feel and our symptoms, it's like, wow, we have this aha moment suddenly. And even if you don't, as a therapist or a doctor, we don't have a lot of time maybe, but we can plant the seed, we can educate. And then it's so much easier to shift and change. Like, for example, I had a client a while ago, he was working in church and he was very engaged there. And then he saw that somebody misappropriated money or stole money, right? And that ticked him off so much, right? And that's where the stomach mucosa, the stomach ulceration started, and he got really angry. But he had no idea that situation had to do with the stomach being stressed and being overactivated. Once he did, it was very easy to just kind of make some small life changes. That's why it's lifestyle medicine, lifestyle prescriptions, right? And things started to improve tremendously without even doing therapy. And another thing that I started to realize is that, and I think that is a huge one for me, and I hope for everybody that listens. Now, the symptoms that we experience are actually more like habits. If we start to see our physical symptoms, stomach pain, high blood pressure, swellings in our body, headaches, whatever it is, once we see them as habits, right? We live a certain way, we eat a certain way, we experience emotions a certain way, we think certain thoughts, right? I'm not good enough, I'm not strong enough, skeletal system is usually affected. So how we live is directly linked to our physical body and the symptoms that we experience. And so in that sense, it's really a habit. And the beautiful thing is we can change habits. Right, so it makes it much easier for us to understand that. Well, I can change habits if I really want to, and that will affect our physical body and on our mental state too.
Yeah, well, I think there is, certainly the habit approach or the habit interpretation as something more chronic. But then I believe also that we have to see the acute onset of an illness as an acute metaphor for what may be going on in your life. And you mentioned before anger and the digestive system. And, I'm thinking about, these cases that we can really learn a lot from. For example, the Joe Paterno, who was this Penn State football coach, and there was this big scandal on his team, and eventually I think he got released, and as soon as the career ended in a violent way, in a way that basically his whole legacy just collapsed under that scandal, he developed lung cancer and died. And so, this is something that just happens over and over again, where we can see that people are in a very stressful situation and the body is reacting to the stress. And we want to talk more about what the body actually does, if the body is just collapsing, or if we really can see the body is sending us messages of what's going on that we need to deal with and address, which is very much what, for example, Chinese medicine has been teaching for long times. But if you have any questions, call in 888-418-6890. If you do have a chronic illness, if you want to get some advice on what to do to change your lifestyle in order to accelerate the healing, if you do feel like you have some symptoms and you want to know if there is anything maybe going on in the mind-body connection realm that you can address in order to also heal that symptom, heal what you're dealing with, call in 888-418-6890, or just chat with us on that chat box. Type in a question on Transformation Talk Radio, and we will be happy to answer it. And now it's a break. We will be right back. Welcome back to Empowerment Radio. I'm here with my guest, Johannes Fisslinger, and we are talking about health and well-being, healing, lifestyle, changing of lifestyle, mind-body connection, all those wonderful things that can help us to just not only improve on our own well-being, not only accelerate that process of getting well again, but also, and I think that's really important, to feel more empowered when it comes to our health, when it comes to our healing, because in many ways there is, as I said before, such a disempowerment, and in many ways also such a distrust. Now, personally, I feel we need to take responsibility, because how well, when you think about it, are you connected to your body? How well do you take care of your body? I mean, most of us take better care of their cars or the computers than of their bodies, because, we clean them and we tune them up and we remove viruses. But when our body is really aching, when it's, forcing us to stop, when we are not able to go to work, that's maybe when we are realizing, oh, I do have a body and I totally forgot, because we are so focused on being in our heads. One of those analogies, or not analogies, examples that always strikes me is just looking into the gym and seeing how people work their body, but they are not really there. They are watching TV or reading a book while they're on the treadmill, and they kind of let their body do its own thing without really feeling present with it. And if we really think about it, does our body not also need not only TLC, but doesn't our body also need some guidance? Something where we are teaching our body on how we want it to behave. Now, Johannes, what do you think about it? When it comes, for example, to healing, do you believe the body listens to your input?
Oh, absolutely. And I think that is the biggest change in consciousness and awareness we can generate. And it's really an effort, right? Because we're so programmed otherwise, where we feel our body has making mistakes, or something is wrong with you, right? Suddenly have a headache or back pain or an eczema in the body or whatever it might be. And we say, oh my God, why do I have this now, right? And once we realize that all these symptoms that we experience, that's intelligence expressing itself, right? It's our body actually trying to adjust to the stressors that we have, the conflict that we experience, and obviously nutrition and all these other things that we know, like nutrition, fitness, play a major role. And once we start to realize that our body is constantly actually healing itself, I'm calling my body and our bodies like healing machines, right? It's one of these most empowering thoughts that our body actually is healing constantly. Now, there's so many things that we can do to support that. We can detox, right? We can eliminate things that are not aligned with us, that don't support us. So food, right? Just if you think that way, well, what I'm eating, and that's an exercise, a simple exercise. It's part of lifestyle medicine concept, right? Where you constantly, you just watch what you eat, awareness, you create awareness of what you eat, and ask yourself, well, is that supporting me? Right? Is that recharging my mitochondria, like these little batteries in every cell has these little batteries, right? Is that really charging me up, or does it actually put junk or stress into my system? The same with emotions, right? If I'm upset a lot and I'm stepping back and say, well, is this actually really supporting me? Do I really need to be upset? Right? The same with our thoughts, like, I need to do this to be happy, or I need a partner to be happy, or as I said before, I don't feel good enough, or these automated thoughts that are not conscious but unconscious, right? They're triggered by life situations. We can just step back and say, is that a thought that really supports us? So we can do so much to heal ourselves, to support that healing mechanism in our body.
Now, I believe that it all starts also with the awareness that our body is talking back to us. I remember when both my parents got ill, and it was pretty clear that they won't live very much longer. And I, being in Seattle, was far away from them being in Germany. And, within a few days, I had this incredibly painful sciatic nerve inflammation. And, it was really something that prevented me from sitting. And when I went to my parents to see them, and it was, the thought that I may see them for the last time, I couldn't even sit in the plane. I actually had to stand for most of the time because it was so painful. And once I was there, I knew that it had something to do with the root, which, in the chakra tradition, it's like, the place where you feel like this is where I belong. This is where, my identity comes from, that rootedness. So, of course, when both of your parents are about to die, your roots are challenged. So I was aware of that. But what I wasn't aware is that it was also a sign of me feeling completely powerless, being so far away. And as soon as I was there, and as soon as I was able to help my dad, just simple things, helping him to go to the bathroom, feeding him, just sitting by the bedside, but I was present, that pain disappeared within just a few hours. It was magic. It was like, everything inside of me relaxed. It was absolutely amazing. And it really made me realize that my body was talking to me, but I didn't listen. And I think we have just to be aware of also, like with food. Yes, there are things that we know are good for us, but then there are also things that the body wants you. I really learned to listen to thirst, which I completely ignored in the past. Let's have another coffee rather than drinking a glass of water. And since I'm listening to my body when it's thirsty, there is so much more also harmony in there. It's almost like your body can tell you, okay, I need some fruit. No, I don't like some cheese today. I would rather have, an apple. So it's just one of those things where we can also fine tune into our awareness and notice not only, with nutrition, but also, like you said, with thoughts, and how does our body react? Where does a thought or an emotion get projected onto? And what happens then? Do we constrict? Do we get tense? Do we feel the physical symptoms? Things like that. And with that, I wanted to ask you, Johannes, because you did work quite a bit in the past on that mind-body connection, and also, have really worked on that notion that illnesses are connected to, for example, inner conflicts. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Right. Well, at its core, this is really what's the deep root cause of every health issue that we have, that we experience inner conflicts that trigger us into this fight-flight response, right, or stress response. And depending on which organ is affected, we have different symptoms. The moment we let go of that stressor, that conflict, the symptoms start to disappear, or the body starts to heal, basically. And let me maybe just give you a couple examples to make that a bit more clear. We've seen, just again, like I said before, stomach mucosa, this ulceration of the stomach, right, where you have just a very, very sensitive stomach. It's very often, or all the time so far I've seen, connected to this anger, territorial anger, like fighting with someone, right? Well, I need to defend my space, what I've considered to be space, often work or relationship related. And some of the things that are so obvious, right? The ears, right? Ears are about hearing. So usually it's some conflictive situation that we hear or that we experience that just is auditory, right? It's, let's say, somebody screaming at us, and that just creates an internal shock situation. Our body freezes, and the inner ear, for example, starts to react, and you might have a tinnitus at some point. That's usually connected to that. We might, for an example, we have, maybe let's take the breast, because one of the areas that I'm very, very interested in, because my grandmother had breast cancer and unfortunately was operated. So and there was a mistake has been done, and she couldn't use her right arm anymore. It was very tragic, right? And with breast cancer, we've seen, and actually we don't calling it breast cancer anymore, because the majority, especially the carcinoma in situ type of diagnosis that we get, and the National Institute of Health actually agrees on that now, finally, that it's an inflammation. It's an inflammation of the breast duct. It's not really a cancer. It's just more an inflammation, swelling kind of process. And that we found it has a lot to do with the loss of someone I want to nurture, I love, which is pretty obvious, right, in many ways. And I've seen again and again, it's usually connected to relationships we had. Usually, there was a very traumatic split up in a relationship. Often the strong inflammation actually is happening when we have a new partner. Because our body actually now is resolving that stress that affects the breast ducts, and that's when we feel it, and so it's really interesting, because a lot of women say, well, actually my life started to really become better, and now suddenly I have this symptom, and the beautiful thing, which Dean Ornish and many others have proven now, that through lifestyle medicine, through proper precise lifestyle modifications, we can reverse these processes. We can help the body to heal in a natural way, so this inflammation starts to slowly heal or heal very fast. Now
I have to ask you, though. Yeah. I have to ask you quickly, though. Sure. Let's say, for example, you have, your wife developing breast cancer, and you would be in a situation where you would see, okay, I see there is a conflict. I see there is a reason for her to have that inflammatory response. Would you completely say, I'm going to only recommend to her to do the lifestyle change, the lifestyle prescription, or would you still also explore the medical traditional route?
Well, first of all, I'm not a medical doctor, so I can't do a diagnosis or recommend treatment anyways, and I never would do that. We're more like health coaches that guide someone, and at the end, we come back to responsibility. What is it that a client would like to do? Where do they feel is the best choice of action? Now that requires education. For example, with a lot of the inflammation, a lot of treatments that I feel are done right now, we start too early to come in with the big guns, right? With the big weapons. Why? And there's a question that I would ask or suggest everyone to ask the doctor. If they say, well, we have to do this right now, this treatment, this medication, ask, is it possible to maybe wait for a month or two? Ask your doctor, right? if they say, well, it's probably okay to wait a month or two, it's not like a super emergency when we have to do something right away. Absolutely clear case. But in so many cases, it would be totally okay, and the doctor probably would say it's acceptable to wait another month or two. Then use that time for very targeted, very specific lifestyle modifications that address nutrition, that address the conflicts, the emotions, the thought patterns, the social environment, right? Are you still in an environment that just triggers you into stress again, and that organ symptoms start to increase because you're just in an environment that's not supportive for health?
Right.
So but the point is there are options. And at the end, obviously I had clients that decided for the traditional route. Even then, it's important you fully believe it, right? You fully kind of go that route and you're 100% aligned with it, and you're coming out okay afterwards. The same thing really is true with going the lifestyle medicine route, which is more lifestyle modifications. If you go in fully, we might call this placebo, but at the end, it's this inner knowing that I'm going to be okay. It's kind of what you talked about before about the research study, right? The people that are positive, they know that's the thing they want to do, they totally aligned with it, they're going to be fine.
Oh, it's very powerful. I mean, the study investigated 6,000 women over almost 2 decades, and they found that the women who had emotional vitality, which was, defined by optimism, a sense of purpose, a sense of empowerment, those women had 16% lower risk of dying from cancer, 30% lower risk from dying from heart disease, 40% lower risk from dying from stroke, 50% lower risk of dying from infection. I mean, it's very powerful to have that kind of resource internally. But, and this is something I think we have to really mention, a lot of people that are getting ill, and you tell them about, well, let's look at what we can do from lifestyle perspective or from, the emotional deeper root causes, they do feel initially, oh, so you're blaming me for my illness. So I'm the one who is responsible. And that makes them feel,
right,
guilty and bad. And so what do you usually in those cases tell those clients?
But, I think that is true, that might be a first thought, but that's very easy. I mean, none of us decided to have a symptom, right? None of us did. So it's really a non-issue. It's like something that we can easily reframe. And, well, up to this point, we didn't decide to have an inflammation or whatever. The body does its thing. It's 80% is unconscious. But the
That's
moment,
right.
we know that connection between the body, mind, and social, now we can do something about it. And taking action, that is something we have to do. If we don't do anything, we just wait or do nothing or just focus on the symptom treatment, very unlikely it gets better on the long run. And, in one of the presentations that actually is initially from Dr. Ornish, is like this image, right, where we're mopping up the floor all the time, right, as a health professionals or individuals. We have a symptom and say, let's fix it, let's mop it up, right? So the floor is over flooding with water, and we're just trying to dry it and mop it up without like looking back and say, oh my God, there's a faucet a little bit in the corner. The faucet is actually running, right? So why don't we just turn off the faucet? Then there is no water on the floor. And that's really the principle of lifestyle medicine and lifestyle prescriptions, finding what are the root causes and then addressing them. And yes, it maybe requires actually some involvement. It means that we have to change. And that obviously is something that a lot of people, might say, well, I'm not sure, first of all, how to change, and then might need help. And I think that's where you, me, our lifestyle prescription health coaches come in, where they can help someone guide through this process.
And I think that's really important. It is about education. It is about learning what is right for you. And it is also about then taking action. Because there are certainly studies that showed that just thinking positively when you're ill doesn't do anything. In fact, some people have found that if you think, oh, I'm going to be fine, I'm going to be fine, I'm going to be fine, I'm going to beat that cancer, that somehow created a stress reaction inside of you that made you actually feel worse. Why? Because it's not just a thought. You really have to also have a feeling with it. You have to have a belief with it, and you have to follow it up with action. Just telling yourself something that you don't really believe, or telling yourself something that you still at the end feel completely powerless about, doesn't necessarily, it's like a magic spell. You don't really believe that it's going to work. So this is where this lifestyle medicine comes in, where it's also important to say, okay, what can I do to back it up? Whether it is nutrition, whether it is changing your habits. Like I think a lot of people would admit that they don't really have good habits to regenerate. How often, when you think about, and I'm sure that more and more studies will show it, when you think about the balance between the sympathetic nervous system and the parasympathetic nervous system, the sympathetic nervous system being like the stress response, and the parasympathetic nervous system being more this rejuvenating part of our nervous system, the part that's about healing and digestion and resting, there is a complete imbalance from most people. We spend more time in the sympathetic nervous system than in the parasympathetic nervous system. That means we are constantly basically under that electricity that makes us, run and fight and flight. And that is something that is not sustainable for the body. That is like running the engine always hot. So getting more often into the parasympathetic nervous system may mean turn off Netflix before you go to bed and listen to some quiet music. Stop maybe, thinking about everything that may have gone wrong on this day, and change your thought more to things that you actually appreciate about and that you enjoyed about yourself, rather than maybe feeling like you have to, at the end of the day, when you're already completely tired, push yourself to have a heavy workout that actually may drain you even further. Maybe it's better for you just to do a little bit of stretching or yoga and then ease in to that more relaxing parasympathetic phase. And Johannes, I'm sure you can add something to that list as well. What would you say can really help the parasympathetic nervous system to just has its fair share on a daily basis?
Yeah, I totally agree. It's this balance between sympathetic, parasympathetic, or, we call it stress and regeneration. And actually the interesting part, we have different symptoms, right, in the stress and the regeneration phase. And being aware that there are these switches and changes is I think, very, very revealing. There's so many things we can do, and I'm just going to go through the 4 basic principles in lifestyle medicine. The first one is nutrition. Obviously, it's our hardware, right? How can we charge up our hardware, give it the best quality foods? It's, so many people now with the internet, they start to be afraid, I've read I can't eat this. I've read I shouldn't eat that. Forget about all that. It's really common sense in so many ways. We can fine tune, if we have a good dietitian that can help us, a lifestyle medicine practitioner, then we fine tune. But at its core, eat what's natural, what has a high quality nutrients in them, right? If it's drinks or foods, and obviously breathing exercises. It's powerful just to use kind of a yoga or any type of breathing exercise on a daily basis. Have a regimen in the morning where we do 10, 15 minutes, maybe yoga or meditation, mindfulness, and consciously breathe, or before we go to bed.
Right.
So that's the nutritional part, but then also the fitness, right? Walking on a regular basis. These basic things that we know work and are scientifically proven. And, it's mostly for us that we might start it and think about it, of doing it, and we don't do it on a regular basis. So my suggestion would be to start. So my lifestyle prescription to everybody listening would be, start to create one little habit at a time. Maybe for 1 week, you focus on nutrition and improve it. If you just improve 1% every day, I think that's so absolutely doable for everybody, right? 1% improvement in one of these areas a day. Well, after 90 days, you had 90%. Pretty amazing, right?
That's
Actually,
amazing.
We have a boot camp coming up where we focus on that.
Yeah.
So again,
So Johannes, how can
one.
people? Unfortunately, we are running out of time. I want to make sure that people know how to find out more about it. So where can they go to find out more about what you do with lifestyle medicine?
Yes. So basically, you go to Lifestyle Prescriptions with a S, lifestyleprescriptions.tv. We have a search directory for health professionals, lifestyle medicine practitioners, lifestyle prescription health coaches. Actually, we have a boot camp coming up. It's a 3-month online program where we guide you through these lifestyle changes. Absolutely amazing. Also for health professionals, we have health coach trainings, and we actually start to have a technology like a thermography, which is an amazing FDA-approved system that helps basically to show exactly what you said, the parasympathetic stress and regeneration phase. We can monitor these lifestyle changes. So lots of exciting stuff there. Lifestyleprescriptions.tv.
Lifestyleprescriptions.tv. Thank you so much, Johannes. This was fabulous. And of course, like always, way too short. And if you want to listen to a rerun of that show, go to the YouTube channel, Dr. Friedemann Schaub YouTube channel. You can watch it even as a TV, as a video. And also, if you want to learn more about the work I'm offering, go to thefearandanxietysolution.com. Thank you so much for tuning in, listening to another exciting show about empowerment and how we can live with greater health, well-being, and confidence. I wish you a great rest of the week. Goodbye.